It seems to me then that Jesus here is acknowledging what the Apostle Paul writes here in Ephesians chapter number 6 about the system that has been put in place by Satan, and Jesus praying to the Father that we would be kept from this evil system, which Paul explains is an entire structure meant to deceive not only Christians, but everyone, frankly, everyone to be deceived.
I find it so interesting that these are people that one tends to respect. They're very knowledgeable. They are studied. They are learned people. They'll tell you Paul's letter to the church in Ephesus is probably his masterpiece as it pertains to in-depth spiritual things. Others will say it's Romans. We're not going to have a debate about that.
And then you've got a few others who say Hebrews, even though we don't have the signature, but it is Hebrews.
The truth of the matter is that the things that he explains in his letter to the Ephesians are very, 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 very important. And it seems like he left the best for last. He says, I've taught you all these things about redemption and about being chosen and predestination. He gets into some really interesting topics. But this is something you need to have and get a hold of. As Christians, you're going to go through battles. And they're not the kind that when you think on them or upon them, you go like, well, maybe what I need to do is get myself a machete or a spear, and defend myself. No. The idea is as follows. Satan would destroy you personally, your ministry, your home, your life. He would destroy everything. At least that's what he sets out to do. If you are a carrier of the most important package one could carry around, and that is truth. If somebody were to commission you to protect something valuable, then you would do any and all things within your power to make sure that it's moved properly from point A to point B. Well, God has allowed us to tap truth. If I can explain it this way, He has entrusted us with truth. And so Satan would do any and all things to stop that, because truth will set you free. You need truth to know the way to God, to salvation, etc. So whatever he does to stop truth. So if you are a carrier of truth, for the love of God, please get a hold of the armor of God, because now you've got a marker on you. You've got a price on your head. And the idea is to destroy you internally, destroy your soul, destroy your heart. And you have no protection against that except for the armor of God.
I'd like to use a parallel set of verses which goes to prove what the pastor just said. 2 Timothy 2. Thou therefore, my son, be strong in the grace that is in Christ Jesus, and the things that thou hast heard of me among many witnesses, the same commit thou to faithful men, who shall be able to teach others also. Thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. Notice the language. It's the same that is used in Ephesians 6, and he uses it again here in 2 Timothy chapter number 2, the one of the soldier, the one whom has been commissioned to wage war, as it were, and defend in battle. No man that warreth entangleth himself with the affairs of this life, that he may please him who hath chosen him to be a soldier. And if a man also strives for masteries, yet he is not crowned, except he strive lawfully. The husbandman that laboreth must first be partaker of the fruits. Consider what I say, and the Lord give thee understanding in all things. The, let's call it soldier language, is present in both texts. So to your point, I think one of the first steps that the believer needs to take to understand that the importance of putting the armor of God is that you're in the midst of a war. Once you subscribed to Christ, to his teachings, once you came to the feet of the Lord, understand you were inscribed into a war. No matter how much you try to avoid it, you are part of a battle. You are part of a war. Either you participate or you don't. There is no options. If you are going to participate, if you are going to call yourself a disciple of Christ, then you best put on the armor of God.
If you go back to the parable of the sower, it's all about the seed. It's all about the word, destroying it, making sure it bears no fruit. And so again, if you are a believer, potentially you are a carrier, a distributor of truth. And that's the way Satan sees you. And his best machination to stop you is to destroy you internally. If he can do that, and by that, he doesn't have to kill you. He can make you of a
Ineffective.
twisted mentality. You become one who adulters the word, etc. You're no longer valuable to the kingdom, because now God knows what it is that you distribute, but you're not distributing truth.
Is it true then also that once we adopt this mindset that we are in the midst of a war, and I best participate to the pleasure of he that subscribed me as a soldier, isn't that mentality in of itself one that can potentially change one's life? Because if suddenly you adopt this language that Paul himself uses, you're no longer a passive or nominal Christian, as much of the modern pulpit would lead you to believe. All of a sudden, if you understand that you are engaged in a war, that in and of itself leads, as it were, the soldier to understand that I best train myself. I best be prepared for all of these things. And suddenly there are things like discipline that begin to take hold in your life, that begin to affect the way that you see things, that the way that you act, etc. In other words, what I'm saying is that the language that Paul uses with respect to the armor of God, here we find it again in 2 Timothy chapter 2, that has the potential then for Christians whom have been on the sidelines, as it were, to finally engage in the battle that they are called to engage in. And this is potentially life-changing with the way that you see things and then the way that one acts as well.
It's funny that you bring that up. Every week I find myself in a situation that allows me to be around men who are ex-military. I get to do this maybe 20 hours a week. And while the rest that participate in this particular place, they do so in a certain manner, you never get issues, problems with this particular group. They always dress in red for this particular activity, and you know that this is the group of military men. You have no issues with them because they were trained by the U.S. military of a few decades ago. Not
the modern
today's, where the private brings out a little card and he says,
I'm triggered.
Yeah, I'm triggered, stop. And the drill sergeant has to stop because he's taking him overboard with his training. It's amazing to see these men carry about their duties and obligations and do the things that they have to do without you having to tell them a single thing.
Because they're disciplined.
They're disciplined. They learn the military style, and it's to your point. Once you embrace that mentality, I'm in an army now, and you allow God to train you, and you allow God to teach you, not some of these apostles, you allow God to teach you how to use his armor, your soul and your heart will be okay. I always look back to Job, the things this man went through, and somehow he came out on the other side of it. Of course, the prosperity teachers will tell you, yeah, he had twice as much, because that's what they focus in on. Somehow he came out on the other side of it, okay in his soul, to the point that the wife who, maybe I can explain it this way, who cursed him out and told him, go ahead and curse God and die.
Yeah.
It seems like they patched things up and he moved on in life. Only God can do that kind of work in the inner man, protect the inner man to the point that you can take those losses and still move on.